Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 25 of season 3. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Joining us from New York City, our producer, Mr. Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
Hey guys, going well. How are you?
Not bad. And joining us once again from Charlotte, Mr. Brian Donley. How's it going, Brian?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, not too bad. We spent all that time last week coming up with an official victory drink, and we didn't get to have it. We didn't even get to have a draw drink. That sucked butt. That's pretty much the only way to say it. Wolves lose 1-0 to Bournemouth. Just frustrating game all around. You know, it's just one step forward, two steps back, I feel like sometimes. Paul, what do you think was the difference? What went wrong?
I mentioned last week that it was like we had the old Wolves back. They had that grit and spirit and determination and everything. And Saturday, we definitely had that old Wolves back when it came to that team that just can't break down opposition that come to shithouse a point.
Mm-hmm.
And if they score first, we've got no comeback whatsoever. And I just can't understand it, that this has been a continual theme. Every manager seems to have that conundrum that these teams show up that we can't break down for whatever reason, and fingers get pointed. You know, is it lack of a number 9? Chances were created, most touches of the other 14 in the box, those possession stats, you name it. But what is it season after season? The likes of Bournemouth, Huddersfield, Norwich, West Brom, even these teams, we just can't get into gear for whatever reason. It's so frustrating. Again, you should be coming off the back of another win and putting that relegation zone firmly on the back burner, but you're looking over your shoulder again. So how they can fix it, I don't know. It's baffling.
Yeah, Brian, Wolves had 69% possession. Nice. And a 1.29 expected goal with 15 shots. Bournemouth had 5 shots. One of them was on target, just so happened to go in. It was just really frustrating, especially like Paul said, once the goal went in, wasn't it?
It really was. I think I was looking at the time chart on XG, and that was literally their only quality chance, was that one goal. I think it was like a 0.9 XG for that one attack, and then nothing the rest of the game on either direction. And yeah, so that part was really frustrating, because then, you know, as soon as that went in, it just became shithouse city, and it just ground the game to a halt, which was incredibly frustrating. And then even after that point, as you were saying, Paul, that fight that we've seen in the last couple of games just didn't feel there. It just felt like they ran out of ideas and got frustrated, and they just kept trying the same thing over and over again. And the only word I could come up with when thinking about it at the end was like, it just felt Bruno-y. Like, it just felt like the Bruno-ish game, where it started out and they were super aggressive and they created all these chances, but it would always be like, oh, this looks really good, but there's one guy in the box to 3 defenders and it doesn't go anywhere. And then when they end up allowing a goal, they just never quite get that intensity back on the other side to actually get one back. So yeah, it was incredibly frustrating.
You bang on that lack of idea, and Lopetegui said they forgot how to play after they went a goal behind. And I could agree with that 100%. And he made these changes, and it's the first time that he's made changes that didn't come off, but they just looked a little clueless, like devoid of ideas. There was that one even towards the end when they were chasing the game. I can't remember who it was, but it was Pedence and someone. They ran into each other, so taking up the one spot, and Pedence even tried to take the foul, I think. And
yeah, that was the most ridiculous part. Is he's on the ground. It's like, Daniel, that was your own player that ran into you. Get up.
Yeah, that was also indicative too, because that was another one of those plays when you're like, you kept seeing that little window, and you could also see them look for the pass instead of look for the shot. And they just take that half a second too long, and then the window would close and they had to go do something else, and then it kind of worked around and around and around and around the box and never got
Yeah.
in the box. And then yeah, those two guys like smacked into each other and the whole thing just fell apart. Oh, okay, so it doesn't go anywhere. Oh, and then the last second shot of the game when someone like slipped and fell just as they're about to shoot. And it's like, oh, there's a chance. No.
And it's gone. And it's
Yeah.
gone. So watching that game, it definitely felt like Lamina was missed, which is pretty crazy
Mhm.
considering just how short a time he's been here, that he's already that important to Wolves. Paul, with Lamina out, Neves really had to drop back a lot more. And it just seems like Moutinho and Nunes can't create those opportunities as well.
I agree. I think the issue of Moutinho starting at home is a severe one, that it's very it stops a lot of the flow of how they can play. And we've, to all intents and purposes, had a good transfer window, made these types of signings that have come in and fitted in. But I don't think you fix the issue if you've still got to start Moutinho in an advanced forward midfield role that's crying out for a different profile of attacking midfielder that we still not got on the books. So I think that causes problems. I think Lamina coming in frees Neves up more. I think it appears to give Nunes more license as well, that he was somewhat restricted. And what was crying out on Saturday was time and time again, it went down to Traore on the right. He'd penetrate, cross would come in, nothing would happen. Saw a lot of the ball, had a pretty good game. When he caused even more trouble was when he cut inside, burst of pace, went direct straight down the middle, caught a foul off Billy, and he got booked. And that was the only time they did it. So there was no invention, nothing down the centre of the park that the likes of a Neves or Mateus should have been exploiting. If it's not working down the right, try something different and see what you can craft via another channel. You should have the players in that squad or that team that started who were adept at breaking the lines and working those opportunities if they've got the service. But it was just seemed to go down a blind alley each time.
So, I mean, how do we fix that number 10 problem though? Is it time to maybe try Cunha in that role a little bit, Brian? I mean, it seems like he's having a little bit of a harder time being that target number 9. Maybe if he's maybe not necessarily a 10, but at least in between, seeing behind the number 9 and still ahead of Neves and Lamina.
Yeah, I like that idea. I liked it when they played against Liverpool in that 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1. I don't know quite how you describe it with him and Sarabia up front. I thought worked really well. Because you're right, he's not just like he's not like your prototypical like big muscly dude who's just going to get his head on a cross. I think he is more, keeps the feet on the ground, trying to move things around through the box. So yeah, they're trying to sliding him back. I don't know whether you slide him back, put Raul up, or kind of do the same thing, kind of tandem up with somebody else. I think would work well.
I don't know. I felt like that game was calling out, and it was, I guess I just keep expecting old Raul to show up at some point. And I really felt like that was going to happen in this Bournemouth game, and it never seemed to. The man of the match for Wolves was almost certainly Adama, who was really dominating on that right side. But I read something today, and it brought up a really good point. It said, the problem with Adama starting is then you don't have Adama off the bench. And really what that game, Paul, was kind of calling out for was an Adama to come off the bench in the 60th minute. What do you think about that?
Yeah, if it was at that stage, it was him to come off the bench and have someone up top to put a cross in towards. And it seemed when those subs were made, it took away that threat and brought the players on for the play that wasn't happening anymore because Adama had come out. But I don't know what it is at the moment with him, because at times on Saturday, his turn of pace was phenomenal, and it was exactly what we were used to. But what did he get to? 60 minutes, 70 at the most, and he had to come out for whatever reason. And
I think it was like
when
70, 75 around there. Yeah.
And when he's been coming off the bench, he's not necessarily been as rapid or using his pace as effectively as done in previous seasons. So were they that undercooked under Large because they didn't train as much and it wasn't intense, and Adama's just way behind? Or is there some type of niggle or what that we can't get him to start and get 90 minutes out of him 100%, or he's got to take that place off the bench in order to be effective? I'm not sure what the situation with him in particular. I can't remember it from previous seasons when he was banging form, he'd start, and I'm pretty sure we used to have him see out the games. But I'm going back in the memory banks now. I might be looking at it with rose-tinted glasses, and it did come out a little more, but it just seems a little off to me that we can't get that full production out of him.
Yeah, I was just checking. It was 77 minutes on the sub, but it did look like he was fading by the time he got to that point. And again, like he was the only one pushing those runs, and he was doing a lot of 60-yard sprints to spots and then not really have anything from it.
And then nobody's there.
Yeah.
It does create a little bit of a problem, and everybody knows how I feel about Adama, but it does create a little bit of a problem where if he's starting in the game, Wolves almost get a little too reliant because he can make those opportunities on the side. And so it's just go to the right, go to the right, go to the right, instead of more of a free-flowing game, which I think works better if you are kind of chasing a game or even playing it out, because you do have that that guy that's able to stretch the field a lot more. So I think we are starting to see the reserve role that Lopetegui has him in is by far his best role. I
totally agree. Because yeah, that's very much what it looked like. And this was the same problem we ran into with Bruno when he was starting. It was just that when he's there, it's just it's too easy just to flick it over to him and just let him run wild. And then to your point, it ends up in the right hand corner. And then that's just, I love Adama too, but he is a one trick pony. He's got this one trick.
It's really a great trick. It's a great trick.
But you need someone else for that trick to work.
Yeah. And you know that what he used to have that when that trick was working was in form Raul Jimenez, who it has been a full calendar year since a central striker has scored for Wolves. That last time was March 10th on 2022 against Watford. Paul, that's a tough stat there, isn't it?
It is. It's pretty brutal that you've got all of that talent and those millions spent, and what we missed on Saturday was OG starting to build on his 2 goals that he's got for the season, and that was our missing piece of the jigsaw, was the opposition putting it in the back of the net instead of one of our strikers. So it is pretty damning. I think there's a bunch of contributing factors, but I still think there's an element there that we need goals, and you need someone to get a little streaky and suddenly start putting the ball in the back of net 3 or 4 times and get on a run that way. And I think there's an element to me with the likes of the argument of having that central striker that it's not the be all and end all necessarily, but you need a different combination of those forward attackers. And I think it's pretty crazy, I'm going to say this, but on Saturday, I actually think we miss Wang, that he would have been more of a compliment to Cunha in a type of game where he could have made something happen in terms of his pressing ability and just being a little more central. Like Traore is always out wide. Sarabia is in kind of the mix, but he doesn't seem to have that cutthroat thirst for goal mentality from wide that the likes of Jota had at the moment at home. He looks like Diogo Jota off a wish. So it's it's making that just having a better profile of forward players, not necessarily being reliant on that number 9.
He looks like Jada off a Wish. That's a good one.
I'm not knocking him. I think
but
he's
it's a
done
great
well,
one.
and I bet you he'll have a good. He's one of those players that looks like he's the team is. They look better players away from home when the pressure's on them a bit more, and they've got the opportunity to break and counter and create something that way. At home, when it comes to the momentum being on them to craft something, it looks totally different.
Dumb question on Sarabia. Maybe the one who thinks this, when he showed up, he's taller than I thought he would be. Like maybe because I was envisioning like a Jada sized guy coming over. And so I was like, you're bigger than I thought you'd be. Not muscly bigger, but like you're taller than I thought.
I bet you thought that when you saw Paul for the first time too.
That's true. I was forewarned on that one. Maybe I looked up enough YouTube clips.
My mother-in-law was not forewarned, which is why she was scared poopless. I thought something that was interesting, at least early in the game, is it seemed like Wolves went in and told Matthias, hey, we're going to get you that goal today, because it really seemed like he was being a little more aggressive, almost to a detriment, and that they were trying to get him the ball a little too much near the box. What do you think about that, Paul? Do you think I was just kind of making stuff up?
I just think in general, there was a lot of trying to, what my dad would say, Sunday League, watching my teams playing, stop trying to walk it in. It was all that looking to craft that perfect goal, where I think they just needed to be a little smarter in and around the box, make that play more even, just to change it up and have some shots coming in from outside. Like I generally would be thinking that you're going to be playing Bournemouth at home or a second from bottom, you're really going to be working their keeper, and he'd be man of the match. Yet he was the busier, but it wasn't like he was pulling worldies off all the time. So he was only tested on a handful of occasions, one of those being Neves' shot. So I'd have liked to have seen him taking more chances that way and putting the keeper to work a bit more and having those opportunities from outside the box. And Neves might have had a sighter on one and cracked another one in, and there you go, game on. But I think they could have been smarter in a lot of ways on Saturday.
Brian, who do you think was really the most disappointing on Saturday?
That's a good question. Probably
Moutinho
or Sarabia.
Yeah.
Moutinho was kind of anonymous through a lot of it. I'm talking the starters. I think most of the subs just didn't do anything, unfortunately. But of the starting 11, I'd probably say Moutinho. And like that's the hard part, is like I was going back to like some of the out of 10 ratings from the various newspapers, and I think a lot of them are like, no one really played badly. No one played well. They didn't really play smartly, but like when you look at them individually, no one had a real stinker. There was just a lot of meh everywhere. So of all the mess, I think I'd probably put Moutinho's as the most meh.
Paul, a big problem with soccer just in general is the faking of injuries with teams like Bournemouth when they are ahead and they're definitely trying to play out the game, or even just trying to get a point, as you said. And that was definitely the case. Bournemouth, man, they were dropping like there was sniper in Molyneux, like Jeff Shee was playing some Call of Duty or something up there. What do you think is a solution to stop to stop this, that people in England would be okay with? Because I think over here in America, we kind of go, well, if you come off the field, you should have to stay off the field for 3 to 5 minutes, or, same thing. When a player gets hurt in the NFL, they have to come off the field for a certain amount of time if there's a stoppage in play. But I get the feeling that a lot of the English fans would not want that, because it's such a change on the rules.
I think there's a combination of having the game flow versus making it to stop start in those scenarios. And I think what's frustrating in terms of the setup that we saw on Saturday is for a while now we've been told, well, the player has got to come off, but it's only until they pretty much the referee turns around and the ball's back in play and on they come again. So you can't really craft the play in that short amount of time to even make that numerical advantage beneficial to the attacking team or whatever. And then the second one that really got me was a number of times it happened right on the sideline, pretty much just move them over and carry on, and then you take your break and your 30 seconds and you've got to wait for that play to form and then they can come back in. I just think the inconsistency, whether it's a worry that, oh, well, we've got to see what the diagnosis is before we can even do anything. I don't see that anything really being enforced when it comes to making a player leave the pitch or take the shortest path to exit the pitch and then come back on again. It seems that they pick and choose what to do, and it's a little different each week.
Here's a crazy idea, Brian. I'm going to run it by you and Alex. Okay. If there's a stoppage, player hits the ground because of injury, quote unquote, he has to come off the field. He has two things. Either he has to sit out a minimum of 3 minutes, or if he comes on the field before that 3 minutes, automatic yellow card. What do you think of that, Brian?
I like it because to the point, the hard part is like, how long does it take them to get them off the field? But
it would be like as soon as they got off the field, like that's when it would start.
Yeah,
it's almost like a penalty box.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the idea of the penalty box idea for soccer because there's plenty of times as well. Maybe we've seen it with like a double yellow or like a bad tackle that's more than a yellow but not quite a red, or people get sent off, which is an entirely separate conversation. But you'd probably then have people who are like, oh no, I can't even walk. Like, how could I possibly get to the sideline? You need to get a stretcher, and then like 10 minutes later, then the game's starting back up again. So it's hard because to the point of like, there's always going to be some way to slow it down. But yeah, I think there's something that would make them say if you don't, if you ham it up, you will be penalized. But yeah, you have to have there is some sympathy for these guys because again, I've never been a high level athlete who's run, what do these guys run? Like 8 miles a game or something, right? At a certain point, you are probably so out of gas that like if someone like pushes you over the wrong way, it's going to take you 2 or 3 minutes to get up anyway.
Yeah.
At least I would be. When you were talking about this, I was actually envisioning the idea of like, those Swiss Alps giant Bernese dogs with the little kegs of whiskey or whatever. Someone goes down, the dog trots on, and just like grabs them by the scruff and drags them off the field so they go off in a straight line.
Alex, what do you think about that? We have the injury box. Like, boom, you go in there, you come out before 3 minutes, automatic yellow. If you're sitting on a yellow, you're gone.
Yeah, I like it. I think that we would have to figure out like what the limit of a natural, if somebody gets like stomped on, let's say, and does go down because it does actually hurt and sting, like do they get 30 seconds, like you got to figure out how long before it's them actually milking it. Like how long is a true disruption in flow? It can't just be any stoppage of play, but otherwise I think I like that idea.
We could say if a physio had to come on the field.
Yeah, which there happened a lot of times in that game. I think it would limit people from faking it, and maybe even put a limit to like how many times a game that could happen without having to be subbed off or something like that, right? Because that's the other part of this. It's like if it's continually the same players, at some point it's like these guys got to go, man. Like get the hell off the field, like you're hurt or not. So yeah, I'm all open to those types of ideas. I love when you come up with these types of things.
I can always tell by looking at Paul's face when he really regrets asking me to be his co-host, and I feel like this is another one of those times.
It's not one of the worst actually. So I'm not totally dismissive, and there's a part of me thinking that this may have saved Big Sass's knee, so it could have worked in our benefit. Who knows?
Yeah.
Those Americans have no respect for history.
Yeah, no respect. We're always changing the rules.
But at the same time, everybody hates Neymar. Like every English
Oh, yeah.
person's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can't stand this guy. And it's like, what we're trying to do is eliminate that. I mean, I know the guy gets stomped on all the time, like he gets beat up, but then protect him from himself. Get him off the field if he goes down for the 6th time in half. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Just the thought. Well, another surprise that happened on Saturday is it turned out Wolves had a superhero in their starting 11, and that was Max Kilman sporting the mask. Paul, did we ever figure out why he had that mask on?
No, I looked after the match in the press conferences, and even before the game. Sometimes with a development like that, you'll see it. One of the local journalists tweet the circumstances. I've yet to see anything what it was to do with. So,
Didn't in the last match he get a bloody nose? I don't remember. I don't know exactly what happened. I remember going down there having to like pack it in.
Maybe it was broken. I don't know.
Maybe it was broken. I don't know, or at least bruised or some variety.
So that caused me and Paul, we were, thinking he was Batman out there. Brian, who do you think if you had to pick a superhero as far as who Kilman was? Not
Batman
based
does
on
make
his
a lot of
play.
sense. Yeah, actually, I was just unfortunately I kind of be a more vocal guy because it'd be really funny if it was like Costa wearing that. You just gotta hear him screaming, "I am vengeance" at people. I was thinking that, or it's gonna be like Mask of Zorro is what I was thinking of. Just stealing it off people.
So you brought up what other people would look like. That brings up my little segment I came up with on Saturday is which I'm going to name a Wolves player and you have to say what superhero they most relate to. For instance, I think we can all agree Daniel Podence, he would be Ant-Man, right? We all in agreement there?
Yeah,
Ant-Man or Mighty Mouse, one of the two. You don't have to stick with Marvel. You can go DC. You can go obscure. Alex, you're a part of this. So we'll start it easy. Adama. Brian, what superhero would Adama be?
The Hulk seems too on the nose because also too nice to be the Hulk. Maybe it was like the latter Hulks where he has glasses and he's not quite as rage all the time.
I like it. Paul?
I'm going Wolverine for Traore. That he's quite serene, but then like rah, he explodes.
Yeah. Alex?
I wouldn't say based off looks he's as much of this, but like the Flash or Flash Gordon, right? Isn't that a superhero? Like just pure pace. I feel like maybe that's a good one for him as well.
That's a good one. That's a solid one. Jose Sa, Brian.
Only because I saw the promos of I haven't seen the movie yet, but I was watching the previews of Black Adam where he just looks kind of mental and all very powerful and just a bit nuts.
Paul?
I've got to go like a Gotham version of the Joker. I just see the redness in the hair, add some white face paint, the green and the red. I think he's got a Joker in him.
Alex?
That's a good one. I don't know. I'm like Googling superheroes. I don't know that. I feel like this one isn't that mainstream unless I just don't know superheroes, but the Human Torch, because he does kind of always seem like
Fantastic Four.
Yeah. All right. He kind of runs around like he's got his hair on fire all the time.
I think he'd make a good Wolverine. That's kind of, with the grizzly beard, and he does always seem to be a little curmudgeon at times.
Can I hit mine?
Huh?
Can I hit my last one? Deadpool.
For Jose Sa. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Raul.
I don't know. Someone else go first. I'm thinking for a second.
Someone who's
Paul?
lost his powers for sure.
I'll go in Superman and Kryptonite then.
Yeah.
I could see him with the glasses and taking the glasses off, being Clark Kent, and then ripping his shirt off and his wool's tops on underneath, but he's lost all his power.
Wow. Alex?
Yeah, it's got to be that. I can't think of another superhero who gets stripped of his powers and becomes insanely human after being so great for so long.
Mhm.
You got it, Brian, yet?
I'm trying to be more optimistic than that. It's a real bummer.
I think he can be like a Zorro, still on the Spanish heritage, and it's just an older Zorro. Zorro got old and had to pass the mask of Zorro on.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I don't have a good one right now.
All right, Ruben Neves. I'll start with Paul.
I'm thinking Neves is a good one. I've got a I think a bit of Iron Man. That he's
Yeah, I like that.
he's got the footballing intelligence of a Tony Stark inventor type persona in the real world, and then he becomes Iron Man. So I'll
He
go
also
for
doesn't
that.
have like all the amazing physical traits. Like he doesn't have superpowers, but he is super powerful.
Yeah.
I like that's a really good show.
Okay, Alex.
I was gonna say Thor, I think, because the long hair and the type of goal he scores just like feels kind of like Thor-like. And he's almost like it's like rooted in like mythology as well. It's like deeper than just a regular superhero with Neves. Maybe that's just because I'm in love with him, but whatever.
Brian.
I like Paul's. I don't know if it'll go with that because it's that's what I was saying a second ago. Like he makes more out of his abilities than his physical his physical traits would allow.
I am going to go with Hawkeye because he's good from distance. He'd always be pointing. Yeah, so that's fine.
I like that.
That's fine. Except it would probably be the Hawkeye from Avengers Endgame who's turned into a badass and is slicing through the ninjas and everything. Mario Lamina, Paul.
Ooh, he's got a he's got a hint of presence about him as well, hasn't he? Who would Lamina be in the superhero? I'm going slightly off tangent and into the late 80s, but I'm going Dolph Lundgren's He-Man.
Ooh, I like it. I like
the
it.
thighs, something about the thighs.
Something about the thighs were very impactful on Paul's childhood. Okay. Alex.
The first thing that came to mind for me was the Beast from X-Men.
That's who I thought too, the Beast.
Yeah. I don't know how else to describe him other than he's a big imposing specimen who's everywhere. From the little we've seen of him so far. And I feel like the Beast would rack up a lot of yellows. And I feel like we're gonna see a lot of those from Lamina. So yeah.
Okay, Brian.
I'm going a Wolverine. This is that determination.
You think he's Wolverine?
He's not going to get beat.
Nice. João Gomez. Paul.
That's a good one. Do we know him well enough yet
to he's kind of like the young kid.
Put him in a particular label. Is there a young up and coming superhero that's gonna bubble into prominence in his later ages? Or I need to chew on that one a little. It's still a little early, I think.
Yeah, we may come back
to that I think it was an Amazon Prime show, Invincible.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, the main
Yeah.
character from Invincible.
That's exactly that. He's like his dad's a superhero, and he's kind of learning his powers, but he's actually more powerful than his dad, but he's not there yet. So like he spends
I
a lot
like
of his
it.
time like kicking people's asses, and then just as you're about to kick at someone's ass, he'll just get destroyed because he's not ready, or he'll just win a fight by doing something incredibly dumb because he doesn't know how to use his powers yet.
Man, that's great. That's great. If you haven't watched that show, by the way, it is fantastic. It
Really
is
good.
not for kids, but it is fantastic.
No, definitely not for kids.
Alex, did you have one for Gomez?
No, not one that's going to beat the one that Brian nominated.
Yeah. And then we have two more here. Moutinho. Paul, who do you think is Moutinho?
I think Moutinho's got a hint of again a little, not necessarily a superhero, but in the realm, he's got a hint of Bond villain about him. I'm going to say that Moutinho would play a Bond villain.
Okay, interesting.
Again, tuxedo, stubble. I could see him pull that off.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the superhero who just seems like really intelligent, loves a bit of wine. I'm really struggling to come up with one though.
I have one, but I don't want it to seem mean. Professor X.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yes, I was going to say Professor X with legs. Yes, yeah, but he can walk.
Professor X could walk.
Yep. That was mine exactly too. Professor X walking, because I could just see that he's like mentoring the young kids. He would sit around. He would play chess.
You've
with
seen
Magneto.
some stuff.
Yeah, he's seen some stuff. Yeah, that was where I was thinking as well. So that was a good call. And then finally, Diego Costa, Paul.
Bane.
Ooh.
Just like crazy.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Alex. He'd have to be a super villain, right? He couldn't be the hero. He'd have to be the villain.
Gotta be, yeah. Definitely. I unless I could think of one that's like, I just keep thinking of him walking out with those wolves, like into the light. I can't think of somebody who's like got some control over like other intimidating beings. So it's got to be Bane.
Interesting. Brian?
I was gonna say Sabretooth.
Oh, Sabretooth.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. There, that's the one. Sabretooth. Love it. You all had some good ones tonight. That was fun. All right, now let's look ahead to Friday's game, Wolves versus Fulham. It's got a 3 p.m. Eastern start, 2 p.m. Central Time. And joining us from Fulham in the South is Jason Jaudon from Fulham in the South. How's it going?
It's going great, guys. I'm excited to talk about Fulham's season for once. Yo-yo to Euros. What can you say?
Yeah, so that was the first thing I was going to ask. At the beginning of the season, would you have predicted that Fulham would be 3 points away from the top 5 in February?
I mean, not even the most optimistic fan. This season has been really special. I did the Drunkard United, not to mention another podcast on a podcast, but the Drunkard United podcast, and I was like, I don't think we'll be in that relegation battle. I think we'll be just above it, but even the most optimistic Fulham fan, couldn't have predicted this, as far as the success we've had this season. We after the World Cup break, we've had the most points of any team in the league. So yeah, there's just been surprise after surprise. It's like we have a time machine at Motspur Park at the training ground with Tim Ream and William. So they're 34 and 35, and they just keep playing like they're 24 and 25. So nobody, I don't think anybody would have predicted this. No.
Jason, do you think anybody is more deserving of manager of the year than Marco Silva? I saw some people on Twitter this week trying to make a case for Steve Cooper at Forest, which is extremely premature. So I'm wondering if you feel like he's been the best manager in the league this season, and just what specifically he's done to bring Fulham to European contenders heading into March.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I was like, no, really? And then I started to think about it, but there's, with the coaching carousel and everything, and you don't have a lot of managers that make it through the season a lot of times. And I was trying to think, and as biased as I am, I think that he is a contender definitely for manager of the year. And Steve Cooper, maybe he's had a lot thrown at him. I know he used to manage the England under 21, so he's used to like having a lot of players in and having to play them and being, kind of forced to make, something out of nothing, basically, with a large player talent pool. But kind of the way Marco Silva has gone about it has really been, I would say, two parts to that. We just found diamonds in the rough, kind of players that have flown under the radar, as far as Polina and Leno. He's not under the radar, but he was second choice behind Ramsdale at Arsenal, and we just really went after him. And those have been two new players that have really stood out this season. And we got a contract for Polina for 5-6 years, which is for not a lot of money. I can't quite remember the number, but it's whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The value doesn't matter, because he's already proved himself. He could be in he could play defensive midfielder on any team, but I'm sure we'll get to that later. But so he's brought these guys in that kind of were out of favor at clubs or looking to rebuild their reputations. And that's the other part of that. So the scouting's been pretty good. And then you have guys like Pereira and Willian, and even Tim Ream. Absolutely no Fulham fan was expecting Ream to have the most minutes of any Premier League player this season. And it's just a renaissance, or a Ream-naissance, if you will. But he's coached up the guys that we have. He's stuck with them. And, Pereira, he was still on the books at Man U, and he was on loan in Brazil. And we brought him and Willian in and kind of like coached them up. They feel comfortable. And so you've got these players that, used to be pretty close to world class or stars for their team, and their career took a little bit of a dip. And then under Silva, he's just put them in the system where their best talents are on show, and everybody complements each other really well. So it's kind of a two-parter of finding these diamonds in the rough and repairing these players' careers. And it's just kind of, there's just Venn diagrams all over the field of players that complement each other, for sure. So that's how I think he's done it. And maybe the third part will be set pieces. Stuart Gray, he's been an assistant coach for probably about 6 years. He came from Sheffield Wednesday, the head coaching job there, and he's helped. But Marco Silva has really worked on his weaknesses, and he wants to prove himself in the Premier League, because all the teams are his old teams, like Everton and Hull and Watford, pretty notorious for giving up a lot of set piece goals and not scoring on set pieces. And we've never been a strong set piece team, but this season we just look really dangerous with Pereira's service from corners and free kicks and everything. So just a combination really of those three things. But yes, man, so far I think manager of the year, honestly.
So Wolves were linked to Polina for several years, kind of what we thought was going to be a Neves replacement. Did Wolves really miss out on him?
Honestly, Josh, don't beat yourself up about that, because everybody missed out on him. And I was
Nice.
on the Fulham subreddit, and there was a Sporting Lisbon guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to be watching Fulham now because Polina is there," and he was listing all this stuff and getting me really excited about Polina. But you know how new transfers are especially from different countries coming into England. It's just a different vibe, and you got to get acclimated. And he was telling me about how he'll never stop running. He's going to give 100% every game. He's a great tackler. You know, I was watching his highlights for the Portuguese national team, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was like, this seems too good to be true. Like somebody would have snapped him up, right? And, you know, now he is one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. Like, he's right up there. I think last time I looked at the stats, he's got the most tackles won ahead of Tyler Adams by 15. So he's number one for tackles won, and he didn't, no time at all. He was already hitting the ground running from like the first game even. So you did miss out on him, but I wouldn't feel too bad just because if other teams knew now what they knew then, what they know now, I mean, I think he would be a top 6 team, honestly, because he's that good. And I think he'll go, I don't think this summer, but you know, when you're at a smaller club, you have to be like, well, he's going to go sometime. I don't think he's going to play out his contract. So everybody whiffed on him, and we were kind of lucky with the new Portuguese connection as well.
Yeah, no, that didn't make me feel better at all, but thanks, Jason.
Sorry.
And to Friday, Jason, what's been your setup at home for opposition like Wolves this season, and who are your informed players that will be on the lookout for?
I'm happy to say it's kind of an embarrassment of riches to answer the second part first. As far as informed players, we've had 12 different goal scorers this year. So Mitro was on fire earlier in the season. The flame has diminished somewhat. He didn't start. He wasn't even on the bench for the Brighton game. And that was the smashiest, grabbiest game you might see all season. That was ridiculous. Fulham don't really do smash and grab, but that was incredible because Brighton I would have hated to, I'm still in disbelief that we got 3 points from that game, because there were times when Brighton played us off the park. But we just kind of dug in, and Diop and Ream there, and our back four really settled. And I'm looking forward to the matchup between Semedo on that right-hand side, y'all's right-hand side, our left-hand side, him and our U.S. international, Anthony Robinson, because he does a lot of overlaps and things like that. And I've always rated Semedo as well, so I'm looking forward to that battle. But we usually set up in a 4-5-1, and we have we have complementary players, like, so Tete is one of the best one-on-one defenders in the Premier League, and you've got Bobby Dicker-Dover-Reed on that side as well, and they complement each other. But with Mitro, he got a knock, and that's why he was out for the Brighton game. So we might do a false 9 again with Bobby Dicker-Dover-Reed up top. We might start Vinicius, who is a little bit more technical. But basically, it sounds funny to say, but I'm just wanting that midfield triangle of Pereira up top, and then the little ginger buzzsaw that is Harrison Reed in the midfield with Paulinho. And that's been so crucial to our success, and a settled back four as well. I would say our most informed player right now is honestly Tim Ream. Like, he just keeps surprising, and we shouldn't be surprised, but we still are, that a center back in the Premier League who hadn't played great in the Premier League before in previous campaigns, he just keeps impressing every game, and it's almost like he's getting better. So it sounds funny to say that our 35-year-old center back is our in-form player, but he really is right now. So, and that's what really helped us dig in against Brighton and steal those 3 points. So I think that it's going to be Wolves are. I watched a lot of Wolves in the beginning of the season.
Oh,
Yeah. Because I was like, they have to score sometime. They have to score sometime.
yeah, that's
And
what
I have
we
a couple
always
friends
say.
here in Atlanta that are big Wolves fans. So I like to watch those games because I can talk about it with them. But and they were on alternate times, like y'all would have an early game or we would have the early game. So I would always like watch those games. But I'm interested to see which Wolves team shows up, the one that beat Liverpool or the one that lost last weekend to Bournemouth. And yeah, y'all can definitely give us a run for our money depending on which team shows up. But
If only we knew.
yeah, you just it's really unpredictable. I know you're probably going to ask me for my score prediction, but it's a tough one to predict. I think Wolves is gonna avoid the drop, but you get really good, really bad. You just gotta like get settled, I think, and I think you will come the end of the season. So
Cool. So you're not going to give us a score?
I will. I think
Sounds like
because
Wolves 4-1 to me.
it could be tough. I think Wolves is really going to give us a big test. But I think that just the form we're in, honestly, I think it's going to be 2-1. I usually go 2-1 Fulham when I have to predict something if I'm not sure, but I feel fairly confident. I would say maybe 1-1 or maybe 2-2, some kind of draw if we were at Molineux, but I think our home form has been good and our away form's not been terrible. We're up to 6, and it's crazy that we're even talking about Europe at this point in the season. So, but hey, I'm happy with that. So I'll say 2-1 Fulham.
All right, that was Jason Jaudon from Fulham in the South. Paul, what's your thoughts after hearing what Jason had to say about Fulham?
In a weird way, it's kind of one of those opponents that you look forward to playing away from home against after coming off the defeat against the likes of Bournemouth, that they will set up in a way, I think, where they won't be overawed by the Wolves coming to Craven Cottage. So I think there's going to be more of an open game. And I think it's one that if he plays it right tactically, they can be exploited with us being the away team. So I'm kind of looking forward to it in a way. I hope it's one that we can quickly bounce back from and right the wrongs from Saturday and get back on track.
Brian, this game has had me scared for a few weeks, even before the Bournemouth game. What are your feelings on it?
Me too. It had me nervous over the last couple of weeks, especially once I've been poking around them a bit more. They've been playing, I think, well above their expectations, but a lot of that appears to be based off of defensive ability. I was actually looking up some stats. There are 15 goals under their XGA, sorry. So like they've allowed 30 goals, but their XGA is at 45. And you look at their defensive solidity and I look at it going like, I don't know how we're gonna break them. We can't break down teams at all. So like I am very concerned about our ability to break them down. Yeah, that is very much my concern here.
Paul, what's the matchup you're most looking forward to in this game?
I think it comes back to the player that Jason talked in such glowing terms about in
Mhm.
Polina in the middle of the
Mhm.
park, and I think that's going to be where the game will be won or not on Friday night. So I think it'll work well that Lamina's coming back. Hopefully that gives Neves that license back again. Again, with that, just what you mentioned about their solidity at the back, as has improved, yet we're anemic up front. It's not going to be a goal fest. So I think that's where it's going to be won if there is a winner.
Brian, what lineup do you expect us to throw out there?
I think it'd probably be. Actually, I agree. Probably Lamina back. I'm struggling a little bit between the 8 Nori or Bueno on the left back. I personally want to see more 8 Nori, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Bueno. Probably your Dawson, Kilman, Smedo, Neves, Matthias, Lamina, Sarabia, Cunha, and am I missing somebody? I think that would probably be it.
One more. You need one more winger there.
Oh, geez. Who's fit right now?
Yeah. Or if you want to go 2 strikers.
Podence. Yeah,
Totals.
probably Podence would be my guess.
Paul, what do you think? What do you think the starting 11 is going to look like?
I don't see it happening, but I still keep on going back to that 4-4-1-1 away at Liverpool in the FA Cup, and with that in mind, I'd be quite cutthroat after Saturday and drop Matthias and start out Nuri on the left as the left winger, left midfielder. I'm not really sure who could do a job on that far right midfield position if it's not Traore. So I'd be inclined to go Lamina and Neves in the centre, Traore on the right, out Nur on the left, Cunha. And if he was fit enough to start in that game away at Liverpool, then he can be fit enough for Fulham. I'd start Cunha and Raul.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Matthias, it just, I don't know. And I was really disappointed with this last game too. I felt like it's just something's off right now. And so, yeah, I would like to see Cunha with somebody up there. And so Cunha's laying a little bit back, especially if you go in thinking, okay, we're going to have to break these guys down. Well, let's try something new. And Lopetegui has shown like he's not afraid to make the changes, which I think we all enjoy. Do you think we'll see Neto in this game, Paul?
Good question. I kind of liked it in a way, well, and nervously, that he played for the under 23s and he scored. So great that he got the minutes there, came off at 45. So you're thinking, yeah, he's building up gradually. And then you're always worried that he wasn't in the match day squad or on the bench, at least on Saturday. But then again, are they actually being diligent with their return from injuries now, that if there was only that one space available and he's at 50% match fitness and Podence is 65, then obviously it made sense for Podence to come back in. But I think with all that being said, it will still be too early for him, maybe on the bench. I think that's probably the best we could hope for.
You think you see him on the pitch, Brian?
Yeah, I'm with Paul. I think with some of the injuries we've had, I don't think they want to mess around. It'll probably be another week or two.
Okay. Well, let's go to the prediction, guys. All of us got a big 0 points. So it is still tied with me and our guest spot at the top with 22 points. And Paul and Alex, you guys are tied with 17. Brian, though, you have not done anything to help the guest spot so far. You are 0 points in 2 times this year. So I'll let you start off. Try and get off the schneid here. What's your prediction?
No, honestly.
probably not a bad call.
I'm
Honestly,
gonna go
I
for
mean,
points.
as that's a good question. Would we be happy with a 0-0 draw, Paul? I mean,
I
it's a
think you
point.
would. It's a
Yeah.
point away from a relatively informed team.
Mhm.
It's a clean sheet, and we can't score. So, if anything was better aligned, I think it's that score.
Yep. Yep. Okay, Paul.
So that's one scenario I can distinctly see. I can also see that scenario that you're worried about, that it's a 2-0 loss, that we just aren't at the races for it and they win comfortably at home and we don't lay a glove on them. But I can also see us actually, again, after Saturday, coming away with a win. So I'm gonna try and play for the points on offer in the league, and I'll put that positive spin on it and say we're gonna win 1-0.
Wolves. Alex.
Oh man, I was going to. I didn't think anyone else would go 0-0 because I feel like we all at least want to be entertained. But that was going to be mine. Because I feel like every time I get geared up for when Wolves get moved to a Friday, and it's like acceptable drinking hours, and you're ready to start your weekend, it's always nothing but like the worst possible like game. Although we did get goals against Leeds, but we fell apart and lost. I remember that was a Friday game last year that sent me into a weekend tailspin. 0-0. I'll stick with Brian. I gotta go with it.
I think I'm drinking some of Paul's optimism juice. I think it's gonna be 1-0 Wolves, but I think it's gonna be a very late penalty that Wolves score on. I think they're gonna try and get some pressure and maybe get a nice little takedown in the box and score on a late penalty to steal the points.
Can I ask a bonus question off of that? Because I had
Yes.
this discussion with a Wolves friend of mine during the game on Saturday. Do you think Neves takes the next Wolves penalty, or does he try to get any attacking player some confidence? Like if Raul's on the field, or Cunha even, do you think he'd give it up?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we don't know what Cunha is like taking PKs. If he's good at it in practice, I could see them doing that just because there's no scouting report on him. Man, between Raul and Neves, I don't know. I still think especially if there's a point on the line, you just got to go with your best kicker. So I probably would put Neves in there. Paul?
I'd flip it, actually. I think I've got slight more confidence with Raul from the spot, even being wholly out of form. And I still think he'd get the nod based on that seniority of penalty taking, that it's your attacker, and he always stepped up even when playing with Neves. They're both on the same pitch at the same time. It always has been Raul, so I could still see it going to him.
Brian?
Yeah, that does make sense, Paul. I have much more faith in Ruben putting one away. It makes me happier to see that happen. So I'd probably, if I was up to me, I'd probably stick with him. But I gotta get Cunha one. But I remember this happened with Wang, and he missed one, and he went in the doghouse for months. It was so bad. Just give it to Ruben.
Yeah.
What was your deciding answer, Alex?
Well, I think I would stick with Neves, because I think he goes in. Although he did miss his last one, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he?
In the shootout, against Forest.
Which, I mean, but you still got to ride the hot hand. The guy's got 5 goals. He's one of your only players who's probably playing with confidence in terms of shooting. So as much as I would like to see a friendly gesture and help some of these other guys get off the schneid, it's got to be Neves. Unless maybe it's like early in the match, like if it's in your scenario, Josh, like a game is literally hanging in the balance in the 90th minute. I think he's got to take it.
That was a good point about Hoying. I remember that. Oh, that was a disaster.
Can I have a preemptive NSQ on this one? Because Alex, you got me thinking about this one. Paul, is something you hopefully will know. When someone hasn't scored a goal in a long time, it's called on a duck. Why?
That's a great question.
I don't know that exactly. Oh, there's a duck for cricket. I've never really heard it in soccer.
Yeah, that's really. I've read an article. Someone hasn't scored in like 10 games. Like, oh, he's really hoping to get off his duck. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. There's get the monkey off his back. It'd be one.
Yeah.
See, we have that in the US. Get the monkey
I
off your
haven't
back.
really heard a duck in football, soccer context, but it's prevalent in cricket.
That must be it.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, Alex, what no stupid questions do we have this week?
We've got a couple of good ones. First is from Stu on Twitter, friend of show and one of the hosts of the Wolves Fancast. He asks, it's been a running theme on the show. Sorry, I'm laughing already. There's been a lot of talk since Lopetegui took over about how touchy-feely he is with everyone. Is this an American aversion to this in general, or does Josh just not like physical affection?
I feel like it's an American thing. Like if we saw this in Major League Baseball or the NFL, people would be just like, what? That is so odd. Brian, I mean,
you're not wrong. I think we like quirky coaches. Like everyone loves Joe Madden in baseball because he like brings farm animals in. But like, I think everyone, I don't know, I think the American sports mentality is such a bro culture. They'd rather be Vince Lombardi than Ted Lasso. So I just don't think I think it's just too much of a bro thing.
And it is funny though, because in US sports, like getting a pat on the butt, perfectly acceptable. Like we wouldn't really think anything of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's the face. I think that's what it is. If you touch the face, that's like a little more intimate.
Yeah, I think it's deeply rooted in just cultural differences between some or many European countries and the US. You're not going to see NFL players, greet each other with a kiss on each cheek. And I'm sure in Ligue 1 in France, that's not abnormal at all, So same with Spain. Like, I think some of that bleeds in. And Brian's right. I think there's just like a weird machismo thing to American sports, probably to its detriment that men don't show passion in the same way. But Josh isn't alone, I would say. In thinking that it's a little off brand. And as Paul mentioned, I think previously 2 weeks ago, I feel like in England it's not quite like if Lopetegui was like a British manager, I don't know that he would be doing that quite as much either, right? I don't.
Yeah, like is Sean Dyche like putting his hands on people's faces? No.
Sean Dyche and Connor Cody caressing each other. Like I don't really see that.
Like I feel
Cody
like
was,
some athletes
Andy Robertson the other day, right around the neck.
Yeah. I feel like there'd be a lot of athletes that would be offended, like if Lopetegui, how he talked to Adama when he put his two hands on his face. Like there would be a lot of athletes that would be like, why are you talking to me like I'm a child? I think that would ultimately,
you're probably right.
I think ultimately it would be inferred as that if a coach was kind of that touchy on the face, it would be like he's talking to me like I'm a child.
But we interpreted that as him loving Adama and that he might be here to stay.
And the blonde hair may be a coming.
Yeah. Get that dye ready. Lopetegui said something this week about how they're still working on it. I feel like even if it's a 1-year extension, we just got to see him play with Sasha once, man. Please. If Sasha's even going to be playing next year, but please, we need that. All right. So here's another good one on Twitter from Michael Moser. We can give you some time to think about it. We could, try to do this as much as we can here. He asks, NBA All-Star game was this past weekend. So off of that, I'm guessing he had All-Star on the mind when he asked if you had to build an All-Star team with current Premier League players, who would be on it? Let's just say it's an 11, not a full, match day squad with a bench and everything.
Number one, I think I do think an all-star game would be very well received. Maybe not in England. Again, Paul's
You're
giving me
killing
the
Paul again.
god.
The English would hate that.
but I really feel like that would, if you did that on like a Saturday night, so it would be like late Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon for us. I think there'd be a lot of Americans that would watch that. I really do.
Oh, it'd be fun. Yeah. How would you split
it'd be
It would
interesting.
be North versus South.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering. It's almost like, well, is there enough London teams to make that, or you make London the cutoff? You could even do top 6 all-stars versus the other 14. That could be, a little exciting as well.
Or it'd be cool to do
Go
a
one,
draft
two,
like they
yeah.
do in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and then you're probably having some guys draft like their international teammates, but I don't know. I think that might be, I'm definitely watching, obviously, if that happens.
Paul is going to have a big old swig of whiskey after this episode, I think.
I'm half expecting him to throw his headset down and walk out.
I would if I was wearing if I had something on underneath.
Oh, yeah. All right. So who are you guys putting in your All-Star 11?
Well, definitely Haaland. I mean, he's got to be in there, right?
Yeah.
At keeper, I would probably do Ramsdale. I think he's been, solid this year. You got to like Paulina and Tyler Adams potentially being at center defensive mid. You'd have to put Rashford in there, right? Even though he's like a thief of
you have to.
gestures, you'd have to put him in there.
Saka too.
Yeah, I feel like the front three's gotta
great.
Gotta be Saka, Rashford, and Haaland.
Yeah, and Odegaard too.
Odegaard would be in
Yeah,
there.
Odegaard's really good.
That's where
is a tough one.
It gets tricky if you try and get diluted with fantasy Premier League stats, because you'd say it's someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, but you just can't. Like when there's a player with so many like defensive faults, he can't be the best.
I feel like Trippier is an automatic though at fullback.
Yeah.
I was thinking of right back too. Be Trippier.
Rodri would have to be in there.
Oh yeah, Rodri.
Yeah. What we would maybe have to limit, like how I think is it baseball where every team has to have like one representative?
Every team has to have one representative. So who would be the Wolves rep? Neves,
100%.
Yeah, Neves, I think for the season he's having.
If it was down to fan voting though, who would be the Wolves leading vote getter amongst fans, and not just English fans, worldwide fans?
I think a wide snapshot of fans would grow Traore.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it would still be Neves. He's below.
It would be all the casual FIFA people would vote Adama.
João Gomez for me.
João Gomez. Free João Gomez.
Yeah. That about rounds it up. I don't know who we would have at our center backs. I know that at least, especially early in the season, both Arsenal guys, Saliba and Gabriel, were really good. I don't know. Although after talking to Jason before, maybe we get an American
like
in there.
Tim Ream. Yeah.
Kind of nice.
Fabian Schär and Botman over in Newcastle have been really good too.
Oh yeah.
Like they don't allow goals.
Yeah, and so is Nick Pope until his red card.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
So, which I think he's missing a final for that, the Carabao Cup final, which is crazy.
Is he not?
It's a no stupid question for another day. Why do cards in one competition carry over to another? But
isn't that missing the next EPL week?
No, I think he's missing the final, right, Paul?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, next
crazy.
2 games, because it was a straight red, and with one of them being the League Cup final.
Would it be the same if it was the FA Cup?
Yeah.
It would. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it just doesn't carry over to European competitions, obviously, but it's anything in domestically in England. That's weak. Just keep it to Premier League if it's a Premier League card, no? Yeah.
I'll say
Anyway.
this. I assume
Let's change that rule as well.
Yeah. I'll say this. I assume that NBC probably pays the most for EPL broadcasting rights. Would you guys probably agree with that?
Yeah, makes sense.
If
I would think so.
NBC wants an EPL All-Star game, it will happen. They'll make it happen with money wise. And the EPL, they're greedy little bastards, just like all the American teams too. If each club's getting offered like an extra, $5 million to have an all-star game, they're gonna have an all-star game. It's just,
Is it do you take it down the angle that it's a sweetener to keep the top 6 away from any Super League?
Could be. You could also pitch it to the players as far as then you have incentives in your contracts for all-star game selections. I mean, it could be a really big deal. And it would also, I think, like I said, if it was on a weekend, that could really draw in some American fans because they're going to watch it because they're going to go, oh, it's all these guys that I know from the World Cup and from other things. And, oh, yeah, these are the big players. And, you just have a good time with it. I think it would do quite well, especially in this country. I can see where, I'm going to be pelted with hate mail from, all of our English buddies, but I would like to see it.
Would they play defense, or would it be like the NBA All-Star game was like 180 to 175?
See, yeah. I think they would still play some defense because ultimately you're bringing in center backs. However, you'd probably want to change the rules somewhat so it's more of a free-flowing game. So it's not a 0-0. That would be a disaster. If it was an all-star game, the first all-star game finished 0-0, that would be a disaster. So they'd have to figure out they'd probably have like a penalty shootout if they did that.
Yeah.
Well, if they made running penalties like MLS in the 90s.
Yeah. And they could even have an all-star weekend like NBA had with skills competition on a Saturday
you could
night.
you could do an under 23 version.
Yeah. You could do that. A skills competition would be awesome on a Saturday night.
Do you guys remember the goalie wars from the MLS All-Star games?
Yes. Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah. I think it would be a lot of fun.
I think
Have we sold you on it yet, Paul?
I'm a little warmer.
He's a little warmer. I'll take that as a win, baby.
That's it for No Stupid Questions this week. As always, you can tweet your No Stupid Questions into the show at the show's Twitter handle at WLWpod. And you could also email them to us. The email address hello@wholelotofwolves.com.
Brian, it seems like you're getting a lot of people joining up at Charlotte Wolves. Tell them how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you can hold me directly at Brian Donley 8 at Twitter or at Wolves Charlotte, as well as on Facebook group, Charlotte Wolves FC. I'm also pretty routinely on the Wolves USA Facebook group, so you can hit me up there on Facebook as well. We've actually got a relatively settled place. We usually end up at a place called it's called Elizabeth Parlor from Hooligans FC, which is a satellite location of another bar, but it's right near Uptown Charlotte. It's a small little place. Last time we went, we had the whole place to ourselves, which was awesome. So usually there probably every couple of weeks or so. But we're always open to any schedule of wherever people are, and always looking for some more people to pop on by, whether you're live in the greater Charlotte area or just passing through. With big airport, if you have a long layover, come on downtown. We'll go grab a beer and watch a game.
Nice.
And that brings this week's episode to an end. We're going to be back same time, same place next week to review Friday Night Lights in London against Fulham. And then it's somewhat of a tricky back-to-back where we go away to Liverpool on Wednesday, March 1st, and then home to Spurs on Saturday, March 4th. So big points are available. Big teams are coming up. So let's hope for a positive on Friday night. And in the meantime, everybody, up the mighty Wolves.
Whole Lot of Wolves is self-funded, so if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities as a way to reach a niche audience, email hello@wholelotofwolves.com for our sponsor packages. Just want to make a contribution as a listener who enjoys the show? Then head to buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. That's buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. We greatly appreciate any contribution. Up the Wolves.